With me today is a pair of Colombian rainbow boas, an adult male and adult female. I don't know which is which. Whichever one's bigger is the female and the other is a male. These are two rainbow boas that I recently found on Craigslist. They were two pickups that I did in a recent vlog, if you want to go check that out in Charlotte. And the Craigslist person actually recognized me when we met up, so hey, if you're watching, here's your snakes. Well, I guess my snakes. Here's the snakes. We've now been caring for these two boas for a few weeks, and I wanted to go over my first impressions on them. This is not a care video. Any care info I give is simply from my research and Googling things, because I haven't gotten much first-hand experience, and I literally am losing blood to my brain. So Colombian rainbow boas. Also, this one is in shed right now, so you are so strong. Colombian rainbow boas are one of the two species that you see less frequently than the average snake. You might recognize the Brazilian rainbow boa, which is an arguably more beautiful related species. That one has lots of oranges, some kind of black rings and spots, and lots of iridescence, which these also have quite a bit of iridescence as well. They're more of a bland, kind of earthy, brownish gray, which I think is also pretty appealing. Not personally what I would really seek out, and depending on when you're watching this, these two may be available at emeraldscales.com if you're interested in buying them. Hopefully they're up on the site, and if you're watching this like super far after it's been uploaded, they probably already sold. But if you're interested in these, I'm gonna go ahead and give my opinions on them. But either way, regardless of my opinions, if you've been looking for one or if you're interested, you can check them out and buy them there. So like I said, they are less common than most other species. Obviously, you don't see them nearly as much as things like ball pythons or corn snakes or milk snakes, all the basic species that you see every day, which are still really cool species. And these are considered more intermediate. Lots of people argue over like, what does beginner intermediate even mean? But some of the husbandry is a bit more difficult than other snakes. For example, they're much higher humidity requiring snakes, and low humidity for long enough can be pretty detrimental. Even just short periods of time can cause quite a few issues. You're gonna run into respiratory problems, shedding problems, lots of different health problems that are not very fun. Humidity is not the most difficult thing on earth, but if you don't know what you're doing, or if you just don't research it in advance, you might have some problems with that. But keeping a nice humid substrate, covering the enclosure if you're using something with mesh, or using the right type of ventilation in a plastic tub will pretty much be enough for you. Either way, this is an issue that a lot of people run into because they don't prepare for that. Also, they stay cooler than most snakes that I'm used to keeping. Most guides are saying about 80 to 85 for a hot spot, and anything over that can also be pretty dangerous. Long story short, they're more sensitive than other animals. Like we keep our corn snakes with an 85-degree hotspot, and then at about 30 to 40% humidity. But you could leave a corn snake in like a 70-degree room with just zero humidity for years, and chances are it'll be perfectly fine because they're such a hardy species. Don't do that if you can avoid it. But with rainbow boas, that'll probably kill them if it's off by just enough. Because they're not as hardy and they are more sensitive. If you know what you're doing, this shouldn't matter because you'll be having good husbandry anyway, right? Oh yeah. But that can be intimidating to some people if it's not quite as simple, and if they're worried that there's going to be a lot of fluctuation. Also, they're semi-arboreal, which means that they are super strong. Semi-arboreal meaning that they climb more than the average. They're not fully arboreal because they do spend time on the ground, but they do enjoy that higher enclosure space, and I think that's interesting. And like I said, these are some examples of just about full size. There's going to be fluctuation with the sizing, but you get a decent idea of how they're going to look. And honestly, personally, I don't care for them. Nothing against these personal ones, but I don't see myself owning Colombian rainbow boas. Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that they've been here, but I've had no attraction to keeping them myself. To me, the size is kind of average and underwhelming. I think this is a perfect size for a lot of keepers, but for me, it's cool. It's okay. I wouldn't mind them having around, and I'm happy that they're here, but I'm learning that I prefer larger snakes. I actually got a much larger snake that you'll see in a video soon, wink wink. But things like BCI size and larger are more up my alley nowadays. These are longer than the average ball python, but they are thinner, so it kind of gives you an idea. And they are super strong. Like you saw, that one was restricting my literal breathing. Now I could pull it off of my neck, no problem. There was no safety hazard, no danger, unless you're like even like a toddler could probably pry one off their neck. I wouldn't recommend trying it. I don't know if that's true. I'm not liable for your children. Either way, they're strong, but they're not that strong, so there's no worry about that. They have tiny mouths, So a bite isn't going to kill you, and believe it or not, they're not venomous. With that said though, like I said, the size is not my cup of tea, nor is the coloration overall. I don't care for morphs that much in general with reptiles. I think they're cool, but they're not a necessity or a priority for me. But at the same time, I want to appreciate how an animal looks if I'm going to own it. And they're just kind of brownish. The iridescence is really cool. It's that reflective, like rainbowy color. Compared to a Brazilian rainbow boa, it's not quite the same to me. I'm really hating on, they're like the little sibling that nobody likes. I just keep talking about the Brazilians. I just want a Brazilian, okay? I don't have one. I'm just stuck with these lame Colombians. I think I see rainbow boas being a little less docile, generally speaking, but that's not a good rule to follow, because as you can see, these are super friendly. They're not doing anything. They're not even head shy. Meanwhile, you can find a quote docile species like a corn snake or ball python where the individual is just crazy, super defensive, super angry and mean, whatever word you want to use. So you can't, it's very stereotypical, I guess. But generally speaking, it does give you an idea that they might be a little more difficult to work with starting off, but these have been super easy and kind of boring. Okay, I don't know what to say. Yes, I'm literally trying to sell these snakes on emerald scales, but at the same time, I don't really want them. Do you want them? You can have them. Just pay money and they're yours. There's verification, by the way. All customers are verified to ensure they know what they're doing before acquiring the animal, which is even more important with these, because like I said, they are more difficult. But for me, the added stress of the husbandry is not much, but it's not gonna offset what I like about them. They're kind of an average, quote, average size. They're not too big, they're not too small, but I want them to be too big, okay? They're an average color. I just keep repeating stuff. I've already said their size and color. What else is there to them? Their eyes are cool. I don't know, their tongues are cool. What I'm getting at is they're just a pretty okayish animal. If you know what you're getting and you like the idea of what you're getting, then you should get them. But if you don't want kind of just a slowish, semi-arboreal, kind of like basic brownish color, a few feet long, I don't know. They don't do much for me. Usually I'm really hyped over my first impressions videos. I'm like, this animal's so cool, I'm loving it. There's all these interesting things and there's these downfalls, but overall it's awesome. But in this case, I'm just like, they exist. They live. They eat. They move around. They're sweet. You could kind of cuddle with one a bit. So I'm trying to think what I would need to do to want this snake. I think 1, I would need to be more interested in smaller animals. 2, I would need to be interested in something that's more difficult. Like a lot of people like to, like once they have a quote beginner animal, they want to seek out something more difficult for the challenge. And I think this is a decent step in the right direction of being more difficult because they are sensitive and they need that husbandry. But at the same time, once you've nailed the husbandry, it's going to be pretty simple overall. It's really just setting it up that you just have to be careful and make sure it stays consistent and good. Other than that, they as a species don't appeal to me. I really do love these individuals. If I were to keep rainbow boas, I would love to have these 2 specific individuals because they're very healthy, they're very comfortable, super docile, easy to work with, the whole shebang. It's good. But since I don't really want rainbow boas, I don't have a reason to keep these. Also, something interesting is they are live bearing. That was the most appealing thing to me, I think, is the idea of breeding them and having live birth, meaning that there's no incubation, no eggs, no wait time, other than them growing inside the female, but they just shoot them out and you've got babies. Which I love the idea of that. But at this moment in time, there's so many animals that need to be rehomed that breeding's not a priority. I would still like to breed at some point, but even if I did, I shouldn't breed them just because they're live bearing, because I think I would get bored of the youngins. A very cool couple right here. They're not housed together, they are separate. And it would be super cool to breed them. So I love boas. I'm learning that I'm less of a python person, less of a colubrid person, and boas are more of what I'm looking for. But that doesn't mean every boa is. And rainbow boas are not one of those doing it for me. If you've never had a snake, this would be an amazing... should I say that? I was going to say an amazing species if you haven't had one, because everything's going to be interesting, but the question is if you should recommend a more difficult snake to a brand new beginner. And I think it's very individualized. There's people that have had experience with hundreds of snakes, and I wouldn't trust them with these animals. Meanwhile, there's a lot of you out there that have never owned one, but I would happily give them to you because you've researched and prepared and know what you're doing. So I don't think you can go off with that. If you're looking for a snake that's not too big, that's easy to handle, that's strong but not a threat, that eats generally easily-ish. They're not the most picky animals, but they're not necessarily the easiest. If you want something that's a bit more human, a bit semi-arboreal, I think this is for you. But that's not what I'm looking for. So my first impression is, I don't want a rainbow boa, but I think that a lot of people understandably do. So what do you think of them? What do you disagree with me on? What do you agree on? Do you have one? Do you want one? Leave it all in the comments. These are the boas. Thanks to all of you supporting Emerald Scales that have been purchasing animals. To some of you, it probably sounds super weird buying an animal from Craigslist just to sell it and find it a new home. But I'm totally comfortable doing that. Because one, it lets me make really interesting content, I get to work with really cool species, and I get to kind of run a little company in the process. Because I think of it as flipping animals purely for profit, and although money is obviously an aspect of it, it's not the only aspect, and I think the other biggest concern is that the animals are stressed because of it, because they're moving home so frequently. But in our experience with over 150 reptiles over the past couple years in doing this, the amount of stress that's shown completely does not at all offset the worth of what comes out of it, because most of the animals really don't care at all and really don't take more than a day or two to adjust to the new home. And then those that do are animals that needed new homes anyway, from people that didn't have an outlet to find them places to go. So I am comfortable just buying these from Craigslist, doing a video on them, and now obviously posting them on the site for these of you that are interested. And I get to experience them and learn more in the process and make some cool videos. So that's it. Thanks to the members for helping support projects like this. If you want to join, you can. You can get early access to videos, private Discord server, easier access to contacting me personally, and stuff like that. So you can check it out at GoHerping.com/membership. Hopefully the names are on the screen and you get to see them all flow by. I don't know, when I support people, it's really cool to see my name on the screen. So, hey, if your name's there, that's pretty epic. You impacted my life in a way because I had to type your name out and put it in the video. But that's it. So these are the boas. I'm Alex, and thanks for watching.